As previously mentioned, I retired in February the 1st, 2000. However, I had saved up quite a bit of leave time and with the Department of Corrections, where I ran the industry program, so that I could take 3 months off and use that leave time while I was still employed by the Department of Corrections, even though I wasn't working there as such. I was simply obligated to come back for one day at the end of my tenure. So, in retirement years, I'd always thought I would probably like to fish like my father had done and my brother John had done, and I decided I would like to give that a try, but I wanted the ability to use a boat that I could walk around on, so I purchased a pontoon boat from my brother Joe, who had retired about 10 years earlier and was tired of using it. And I put that pontoon boat out on Lake Thunderbird, where all I had to do is I left it at this place where I rented a space, and so all I had to do is drive out there and get in the boat and take off. At least that was the plan. But and I did enjoy that quite a bit initially, but after a while I found that I wasn't using it frequently enough to justify the cost of keeping it out on the lake, so I parked it in the backyard, where I had built a fence and gate where I could back the trailer and boat into the backyard. But with any boat, you find that you need to use the boat or the motor with some frequency, otherwise it sits there and develops problems. So after several years of using it and enjoying it, our family would come down and we would go out on the lake in the pontoon boat. So Brendan enjoyed fishing, and so we would use it to go to Lake Thunderbird and fish. And but after a while, it got to be more trouble than I thought it was worth, and I sold it to a friend of mine by the name of Brian Slocum, who used to work as my factory manager over the furniture operation. Brian was a very skilled furniture maker, and he was also an expert fisherman, along with many other talents. And so we became good friends and fishing buddies and enjoyed time with each other. I also had dreamed of having a RV, recreational vehicle, bus like my brothers had when they retired, and my father and mother had when they retired. So that was in the back of my mind. That looked like a lot of fun, to be able to travel around with your own home and tour the United States and have the luxury of not having to go to a hotel or motel, but be able to pull into a RV spot and camp out for the night or however length of time you wanted to, and then pull up and go wherever else you want to go. So I bought the RV from a lady whose husband had died and she was wanting to get rid of it. I bought the RV and her car to tow behind, and we used that for about 6 or 7 years traveling around the United States. In the first few months of my retirement, we took it to Kentucky and visited with Brenda's family, and then on down to Florida to visit her sister and tour that state and Disney World. And so we had a great time just for the first 3 or 4 months of our retirement. And then I came back and spent the final day on February the 1st, year 2000. We traveled throughout the United States in that RV, and another one that I bought later in 2007. And we toured, in our retirement, we toured 49 of the 50 states, and also went into Mexico and Canada. And so we went through, most of this was with our RV, and the thing about an RV you will find very fast is that you're traveling with a home, and homes have a lot of different things that can go wrong with them, since you have on board your generator for your appliances. You have several different batteries and electrical systems that must work right. You have all of your kitchen appliances, and then the RVs have the slides on them, and so you have just many things which you find will eventually give you a problem, and you better be able to deal with that, or otherwise you're going to suffer the consequences of having to take it to dealers and put up with that inconvenience and cost. Brenda became very adept at driving the RV. She was very good at it, so it was nice to be able to trade off driving the RV. It was also nice to be able to drive on down the road while Brenda was preparing a meal or a lunch for us as we drove along. We really enjoyed our RV. They all had 2 slide outs, which made the living accommodations very good, and we owned 2 RVs. I bought my second RV when we sold the farm, because the other one was getting older and we wanted a newer one with more features and better accommodations. They were around 35 foot long, and provided us with all the space that we needed for traveling, along with our dogs. Bo traveled with us for many years until he died at the age of 14, maybe 15, and then later on we had Gus traveling with us in the years that we spent down in the RV park in Dallas at Victoria Palms. The Victoria Palms Resort was in Donna, Texas, and it was ranked in the top RV parks in the United States. It was a large place that had not only RV slots, but also permanent housing for people who retired there. It was filled with palm trees, and it had many recreational facilities where people gathered to play games, and we thoroughly participated in that, in games. I played golf, and shuffleboard, and bocce ball, and ladder golf, and poker games, and bridge games. And Brenda also participated in the bocce ball and the shuffleboard and the bridge games and several other activities. So we made many friends there and thoroughly enjoyed our time there, and still are in communication with the friends that we made while we were there. We would travel down to the RV park from our home in Norman on January the 2nd each year, and stop in Marble Falls to visit with my brother Joe and his wife Carol, and spend the night with them. It was about midway between Norman and our destination in Donna, Texas. Donna, Texas was only about 7 or 8 miles just north of the Mexican border. So it was about 600 miles down there, and then we'd get up early in the morning of the next day after spending the night at Joe and Carol's, and get down to the valley at about noon that next day. And we did that for about 15 years until we got to the point to where we thought it's time to sell our RV and quit that lifestyle. So in the year about 2000 and I guess it was around 2018 or 19 that we quit going down to the valley. It could have been as late as 2010 or so. And the last 4 years that we went down there, we rented other people's houses since we had sold our RV and didn't want to drive it down there back and forth anymore. It becomes a certain time in your life that you better quit driving big rigs and that sort of thing before you can no longer safely drive them and take care of them. So I guess that pretty well summarizes what I want to talk about with the RV. We saw about everything that one would want to see, and from the standpoint of different kinds of scenery throughout the United States. The only thing that I regret in not doing in retirement is going overseas to see other countries. We just never got around to that because we were enjoying our RV during the most of the year. And so, but with today's technology, I think you can pretty much see what's out there in the world to see, and you don't have to put up with the travel hassle in any rate. So I think that pretty well covers the retirement era that I wanted to talk about, and I think I'll go into the our my stock picking and studying. When I sold the farm, I had about $500,000 free to invest in the stock market, and I had always wanted to play around in the stock market, and so I began studying it, and I decided that I didn't know enough about it to put all of my money into stocks by myself, so I hired an investment firm to do that for me, putting $400,000 in their hands to manage, and they did a good job, but unfortunately, shortly after I gave them the $400,000 to invest in stocks, all the stock market went significantly down, and both their investments and my investments really took a plunge, several $100,000 plunge for over a period of several years when the whole stock market went down. In the meantime, I was studying the market and doing a very thorough analysis of stocks, but I discovered something that I must have felt like I knew, but I didn't really know. I'm a gambler from the standpoint of investments. If you look back at my history of buying land on the farm, I took some big gambles in purchasing land and making some investments there. And it looked like I was going to go bankrupt there for a while when commodity prices were down and drought hit and interest payments weren't so high. It wasn't that it was bad investments, but it was just circumstances that nearly took all of the money and more than I had. But I survived that and survived it well. Same thing happened with the stock market after the initial downtrend. I lost close to half of the money that I had for investment, but I kept investing, but I kept taking risks that in hindsight were foolish. I hadn't learned enough to pay close attention to the financial stability of many companies that I invested in, and a number of them went bankrupt. And so I learned some very valuable lessons over the years, that what to pay attention to and when to invest in certain companies and when to sell. And so it got to the point to where I had in the about 2020, the stock market had gone down again, and I was left with only around $200,000 in my stock account, and so it was looking pretty sad from the investment standpoint. However, along this time, I got a class action lawsuit payment from a class action lawsuit on Identicar, which I'll discuss later. But that paid me $200,000, And so along this time, the stock market really hit bottom around March of 2020. And there was no logic to it as far as I could see, particularly with all companies. They were really, really low. And the gambler in me said, everybody's getting out, you need to get in. And so I took the $375,000 or so dollars and invested it within a period of several weeks into good oil companies that I knew had good futures. It was just a matter of timing and my judgment until the stock market went back up and the oil prices went up, and I would recover and make some money with it. And that worked out good. I bought the stock at very low levels, and a couple of years later sold it, and it had reached $1.5 million. And so I finally became a millionaire, and I've held on to that. In fact, I've made a little bit more. So I enjoy the stock market to these days. This day, I don't do a lot of trading. I primarily invest in dividend-paying stocks, and that gives us a very good income. That with Social Security and the pension and my dividends and my stock, I regularly get somewhere around $120,000 or more a year, which is more than money than we need, and so we try to give it to our kids and grandkids for charity. I think I want to go into another subject area now, and let's see what we got here. I made a few notes. I think I'd like to get into the area of my health. I've been very fortunate through most of my life to have good health, and I was always growing up very thin. When I graduated from high school, I was 6 foot tall, weighed 165 pounds, solid muscle from working on the farm. Never had any serious childhood illnesses. I had no problems throughout my young adult life. I always seemed to, from age around 30 on, to have problems with blood pressure, and I would try to work on my weight and exercise to help control that, but I soon learned that when I was around 40 that I'd have to take medication for that to keep the blood pressure within the areas that doctors wanted me to. I started smoking when I first went to college, smoking cigarettes. Most young people did back then. What a stupid habit that was. But I kept it up until I was about 35 years old, smoking the cigarettes, and then I switched to smoking a pipe, which I continued to smoke for another 15 years or more, and then I would smoke an occasional cigar. The nicotine habit is just very difficult to get rid of, but I was able to do that finally when I was around 70 years old, and I haven't smoked anything in probably 25 years or so. I had to have a hernia operation, and that somehow or another developed, and that was a very minor operation, which was outpatient kind of surgery. And then the first major problem I had health-wise was when I developed prostate cancer, which was in 2005, I believe it was. And I studied up on how that should be treated, and decided to try radiotherapy, which is the implantation of radioactive seeds into the sites where the cancer is located in the prostate, and that worked out great. It completely got rid of my cancer in the prostate. I go back once a year to have it checked, and the PSA is so low they can't even read it. So that worked out good with very limited complications. It didn't affect me sexually or any other way that I could discern. So the next episode I had, which turned out very serious, was in order to, my blood pressure was getting very high, and the blood pressure medication that I was on wasn't controlling it. And so my doctor, Dr. Blue, Barney Blue, prescribed a medication by the name of Binocar, which I took for a year and a half, and it really was working great. But unbeknownst to me, I was becoming allergic to it. And it manifested itself by creating diarrhea and upsetting my stomach and vomit. And this went on off and on for a month or so, and I got to the point to where I was very fatigued, and I thought I was okay, but Brenda discerned that I was really getting weak, and we went to the emergency room, and the doctor, after taking blood samples, he came in to see me, the emergency room doctor, and said, "Mr. Newberry, if you'd only come in a few days earlier, we might have been able to save you." Well, he said my kidneys had completely shut down. My creatinine level was over 10, and it should be under 1. And so he hospitalized me, gave me blood transfusions, and gave me saline solutions, and kept me there for a week trying to figure out what was wrong, what was happening. And we had no idea at that time that it was my reaction to the Benicar. My body had become allergic to it because I had been, in taking it, I had been taking it off and on as I monitored my blood pressure, and so that was when I would recover when I wasn't taking the Benicar, and then when I started taking it again, I would get sick again. Now this is all in hindsight. I didn't know all of this at the time. So when I got well enough to get out of the hospital, we drove back immediately back to Norman because I wanted to be close to home to be treated if I needed anymore. And sure enough, I did within a few days, and I ended up going to a specialist, and he gave me a colonoscopy to see if there was any problem in that area, and in the course of that, I noticed that even though I hadn't eaten or drank anything prior to the colonoscopy exam, I had taken my Benicar, and within 30 minutes I again experienced diarrhea, and that put a real flag in my mind that something is really wrong here. And I asked the doctor if I should continue taking that Benicar anymore, and he said, well, yeah, take another one and let's see what happens. If you have a reaction to it, we'll know it's the Benicar, and if you don't, we'll know something else. So I did, and when I was upstairs when I took the pill, Brenda found me 30 minutes or so later completely out of my mind and delirious, and so that was how we found out for sure that the Benicar was the problem. In the meantime, I had lost quite a bit of weight, say over 50 pounds. I had the ambulance came and took me to the emergency room, and they did what they needed to do to keep me alive until they put me in the hospital. And I was unconscious for 3 days. I woke up in the hospital in the ICU, and so after a week I had recovered, and since I was off the Benicar, but I was very weak. As a result, just in the period of a couple of months, I had spent about 15 days in the hospital being very sick, and lost a lot of weight, and was very, very weak. But I recovered very good from that after a few months, and regained my health and vigor, and so that was quite an experience. I didn't find out until maybe 5 or 10 years later that there was a Mayo Clinic had discovered that Benicar had created the same problems with many other people, and reported it to the FDA. And with that, there was a lot of people that filed lawsuits because the Japanese company that made the Benicar knew that it had these effects, but didn't put it on the warning label for the physicians to see. So there was the Japanese company agreed to put quite a few $1 million into a fund for the class action lawsuit, and there was several firms that advertised their services for following the class action, and I contracted with one of those in New Jersey. Did an excellent job, and mine was one of the more severe cases, and I was able to get a judgment in my favor of a little bit over $300,000. So after all of the expenses and the attorney fees were paid, I got a little over $200,000, which I used to invest in the stock market, and within 2 years, that $200,000 had increased to about $1 million. So I was very fortunate in that regard. But it was a very traumatic time for me. I wouldn't take that money for all that I went through. It was very, very debilitating. Then I haven't had any other problems until about 2.5 years ago, when I began to have shortness of breath when I exerted myself, and it was to the point to where I couldn't do garden work without getting out of breath. And so I knew something was going wrong, and reported it to Barney, and he sent me to the cardiologist, who sent me through several evaluations and determined that I had 2 blocked arteries and required emergency surgery, bypass surgery. Very fortunate that they caught it when they did, because these arteries were so blocked that I could have easily died. So they did the bypass surgery, and I never felt any pain from that surgery, none whatsoever. Most people report having pain when they cough or move around for a week or 2 after that surgery. I never felt any pain. And but when they put me in recovery after the bypass operation, I had a reaction to the anesthesia, and that was debilitating. I was hallucinating, and I was had severe reaction. I was very weak, and had to spend about a week in the hospital from that, and then go through physical therapy to regain my strength after being in the hospital and in recovery from the operation. Well, because of the operation, my cardiologist, Dr. Madden, put me on extreme blood thinners because he felt like he needed to keep me from having a stroke with any blood clotting. Well, that in turn created a problem with bleeding from my intestine, where it later discovered it was bleeding from my diverticulitis, and it bled so profusely that Barney sent me to the emergency room, and they put me in the hospital and started several pints of blood transfusion to me. And that night, I had a heart attack. I didn't feel the heart attack, and when they told me I'd had a heart attack, I couldn't believe it, and they said, yeah, we discovered it through the sampling of your blood. And so they transferred me to Integris Heart Hospital, where they discovered that due to the severe bleeding one of the arteries, bypass arteries, had collapsed, and that in turn had created the heart attack. So there we were with one of the arteries collapsed, and the other one, so I only had one bypass working right, and so the other artery was plugged up. Well, my ability to pump blood was what they call the injection rate should be 50 or more. Mine was in the 20s, and so my surgeon warned me, or my cardiologist warned me, that it's a very risky procedure available, that it's a life-threatening procedure where they go into the vein and clean out and ream out your artery because it was so clogged. So the surgeon that performed that procedure told me if I didn't have the procedure, it wouldn't be long before I couldn't walk across the room. But the procedure itself was very risky. So that was easy for me to decide. I told him, let's do it. And it was successful, and he did a fantastic job. And he told me later mine was so unique and complicated that he, in fact, used it to instruct his students at the OU Medical Center. So that took care of the bleeding, or of the heart, and I regained my ability to exert myself and through physical therapy for several weeks. And but the cardiologist was very concerned because I had atrial fibrillation, and he was concerned that I would get a clot in a chamber of my heart, and that would go to my head and give me a stroke. So he kept me on the blood thinners. Well, in doing so, in a few months, I had another major bleeding episode, and that was the doctors that treated me on that determined that, again, the blood thinners had created the blood loss through the diverticulitis, and that told the surgeon, my cardiologist, that he just had to get me off of those extreme blood thinners. So the cardiologist said, if that's the case, then I need you to have what they call a Watchman procedure, which will be the insertion of a little spring-like device, circular spring-like device, to be put into a chamber in your heart, which will block the blood from getting out there, and which will keep you from having blood clots, which would cause a stroke. So we did that procedure, and so everything seems to have worked out really great from that standpoint. My injection of my heart has been measured in the upper 40s, and I can go out and work in the yard without getting out of breath. And so I'm still doing that at nearly 89 years old. However, I have now got a very serious life-ending cancer. This was picked up from, I began to have about a year and a half or 2 years ago. I began to notice some little nodules on my scalp, which the dermatologist removed, and they determined that there was no problem. However, a year or so later, they continued to develop and proliferate, on my scalp, and that gave concern, and the pathologist reported that they were cancerous, and so the dermatologist referred me to the Stevenson Cancer Center, where they put me through a PET scan and determined that the cancer was what they called leiomyocarcinoma, which is spelled Leimyo carcinoma, which is a cancer of the smooth muscle tissue, such as the lining of your stomach and things of that nature. And the cancer had metastasized to my bones, and so it spread in my body, and the best estimate that this was discovered in May, late April, May, and so this is now the middle part of June, and so they have, the doctor has at this current time put me on a medication that is called Votrient, V-O-T-R-I-E-N-T, Votrient, and that I started the first part of May at a low dosage of 400 milligrams, which I have taken for a month, and now I'm recently have started at a 600 milligram level. So they're gradually increasing the level of this. It's a chemical that's supposed to keep the blood vessels from growing in the tumor, and so it has many side effects reportedly. However, I've been on it for about 6 weeks now, and haven't had any side effects that I've noticed. So time will tell how much time I've got and what reactions I'm going to have is unknown at this point in time. I've led a great life, so I'm ready for what comes, and accept that. I think I'll stop at this point in time, and we'll do the next scene tomorrow. Bye-bye.